friends, my name is Thunder, and I has thoughts. Now, as you all know, I am a cat, and therefore I am blissfully free of shame or modesty. I'm not even sure what modesty is, to be honest, but my Hooman had some thoughts about it she wanted to share, so take it away, Hooman. Thanks, Thunder. I've recently become intrigued by the expression of modesty in 3 of the major religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. I have some personal experience with how modesty is practiced or defined in Judaism from my involvement in a religious community for a few years, and thus I was aware of some of the main arguments in favor of modesty given by my friends who followed these rules. Recently, I watched a video that compared Christian and Muslim values regarding modesty that brought up some interesting parallels between those 2 religions, and I immediately noticed that the explanations I had heard from my religious Jewish friends seemed to follow the same script. I should note that these modesty rules generally apply to women. Some will claim they apply to men too and give examples, such as that men should wear presentable clothing and be careful what they talk about or look at, but the guidelines for women's modesty tend to be much stricter. In this video, I want to explore this notion of modesty and demonstrate the themes that drive the formal religious expression of modesty in these 3 religions. Let's start off by defining modesty. We can start with the dictionary. Merriam-Webster's a good source. Here we have 2 definitions. The first is the quality of not being too proud or confident about yourself or your abilities. While I do think this definition applies in some ways to the religious expression of modesty, such as not bragging, showing humility, not gossiping, avoiding discussion of topics deemed inappropriate, it's the second definition I'm going to focus on today. The second definition says that modesty is propriety in dress, speech, or conduct. Propriety. I think we need to look that one up too. Propriety is conformity to what is socially acceptable in conduct or speech, the customs and manners of polite society, fear of offending against conventional rules of behavior, especially between the sexes. So modesty involves conformity to social norms, avoiding offense against others in your same social group, and especially in regulating your behavior and dress when the opposite sex is involved. But what does modesty mean to those who practice it in a formal sense, according to their religion's rules? I collected some clips from videos by religious women in all 3 of these faiths. All 6 videos will be linked in the description if you'd like to see more. I found the parallels to be very interesting. The first common theme that emerged was the idea that dressing modestly takes the focus off your body and onto who you are.
Just for you, if you don't dress modestly and you don't find your worth, you don't feel like you love yourself, you constantly are feeling insecure, try dressing modestly and see if that changes. See if your self-confidence takes a huge boost up, because people will stop seeing you for what you look like and start seeing you for who you are. And that is true worth. That is true value.
A woman is valuable, is important, and when you meet her, her body should not be the first thing you pay attention to. It needs to be her mind and her mindset, not the physical, appearance of what she's wearing.
Essentially forcing people to see you by your personality and not just your looks.
Another aspect to my headscarf is that it highlights my personality. Rather than what I'm wearing or how my hair is done, you can judge me by what is straight in front of you, and that is my personality, and that is what my headscarf signifies.
But I'm just saying that it really transformed my mind, and it made me view the world in a completely different way, and it made me not rely on just my body to be the focal point, but it just made me rely on me, my personality, and my love for the Lord being at the forefront.
In many of the videos, this was coupled with the idea that you shouldn't base your self-worth on your body, sometimes accompanied by rants or extended commentary on women who wear clothing that the presenter doesn't consider modest.
Right? Because I love to, show off my body. Put it that simple. Because I really only gained my self-worth from others, from other people telling me I'm pretty, from other people looking at me, and that's where I gained my self-worth. And guess what? That's when I was the least happiest in my entire life. When I constantly dressed to impress, when I dressed in a way and I put on tons of makeup and, do my hair every day. And again, I'm not bashing anybody who does. I do it, but from a different place. So back then when I would do that, and I would get all the compliments, I wouldn't feel happy because the compliment would come, but then internally I didn't value myself. I didn't really love myself. So I never felt happy. And then when I started dressing, covering myself, right? That's when I truly started valuing myself, because I started realizing that I'm not this body, I'm a soul.
I think women should feel more comfortable with covering themselves rather than having to follow what society does by feeling validated with the idea of showing yourself more. It was society who tricked women that they're going to get more respect if they show themselves more.
Saw the value and the power of modesty, I just said to myself, like, I'm benefiting from this more than any man could benefit from. Like, I am truly benefiting from this. Like, the doors that have opened up for me when I started to dress modestly, the confidence that I have gained when I started to dress modestly, the more I cling to God, the more I cling to my husband, the more I cling to my inner self.
The way that God is he literally, he is a father. He's literally a father. And there needs to be boundaries for his children. So he puts these boundaries in place, not because he wants to control us, but he wants to protect us. And he doesn't want us to be harmed.
Some of the women also mentioned specifically the idea of being protected from the male gaze.
The reasons as to why I wore the hijab is because, first of all, as a woman, I feel like my hair is a prize. Other people don't deserve to see in public random people having access to me like that. The reasons as to why I started wearing the hijab. I started wearing the hijab because I wanted to protect myself from the male gaze. I wanted to protect myself from any gaze in the public eye. I wanted to protect my aura from strangers having that kind of access to me.
So according to the University of Essex Islamic Society, the believing woman should lower her gaze, protect her private parts, and not show off her adornments, aka beauty, except for what it naturally appears thereof. So we're supposed to be modest about it. We're supposed to not make our beauty overtly obvious where it can attract unwanted male attention. It's for our own protection as well as protection for the male, which can have, when they can have like temptations, it's for both sides.
It's important to note here that how a woman dresses has basically nothing to do with whether she might be assaulted or treated inappropriately by a man. The number one way to keep men from assaulting women is to teach men not to assault women. Full stop. The one commonality I did not expect was the emphasis on modesty being elegant and classy. All 6 women mentioned that part of being modest was to wear presentable, fashionable clothing, and most mentioned that they were representatives of God and or their religion, and that should be reflected in their dress.
I don't want people to mistakenly believe that tzniut means that you have to be ugly, right? That you have to be dirty, gross, not take care of yourself, not try to beautify yourself. It just means that you have to work on your beauty from the right place, right? Are you dressing a certain way to impress people? Or are you dressing a certain way to be a representative of God?
And it's all about modesty, like Kate and Queen Elizabeth of England. It's all about that representation and classiness and elegancy.
And you should look nice and presentable, fashionable at all times, because you're representing a whole, religion. So you should look nice.
Is that modesty is elegant. There's a saying, I like Anna Bay here on YouTube, and she has a saying that many women are sexy, many women are beautiful, but not many women are elegant. And so having that elegance really does elevate you in society, really does elevate you in a lot of people's mind. You just stand out.
I've heard as well too that our outward appearance should be reflecting our spirit inside and what we're representing. And so for me, I want to be representing Jesus. I want to represent God, and he is pure.
Many of these women had become religious or returned to being religious after a period of their lives in which they did not practice modesty. Many referred to a modesty journey as well, mentioning how hard it was to start dressing differently from the way they were used to. These women mentioned that dressing more modestly gives them confidence, but didn't really elaborate on why. They also mentioned that a woman's body is described as priceless and shouldn't be on display for everyone to see.
your body is so sacred that it's not worth a penny. It is not worth a sum of money. Muhammad Ali told his daughter, you are like a pearl, you are like a diamond, you need to be covered. When pearls are found in the ocean, they're encapsulated in a shell.
So moving on to modesty and purity. Hair and body in my religion of a woman is considered the most valuable thing, and it should be protected in all circumstances.
And in fact, the Bible actually puts quite a bit of value on our bodies, quite a bit of worth on our bodies. The Bible actually says that our bodies are a temple of God, and that is not something to be ashamed of.
While themes of not showing off your body, covering up parts that might invite the male gaze, not wearing revealing clothing, and dressing presentably were obvious in all three religions, the rules for how this accomplished varied noticeably. For example, Judaism's rules are,
and the dress code is that the skirt should go below the knee, cover the knee, the shirts should go below the elbow, covering the elbow, and the collarbone should be covered. So the neckline should be up here, and not like, obviously when you're more adults, not to be so fitted.
While in Islam,
Well, the basic rules and regulations, according to the Hijab.com, a site where Islamic scholars come together, a sister must cover all of her body except her face and hands. The covering of the hair, neck, and shoulders should be achieved by the headscarf itself, and then the rest should be achieved by wearing, loose and not too tight clothing, opaque, not anything translucent or transparent or anything. Basically modest.
both Judaism and Islam give pretty specific guidelines that involve covering most of the body. On the other hand, in Christianity,
There's not like a specific line. It's not about like rules and regulations of what we wear. Like, oh, you can only wear a skirt that's this long, or you can't wear a tank top that has straps that are this thin. There's definitely not a line like that. It's all about our personal relationship with God and paying attention to what he is convicting us of in our spirit.
the two Muslim women spent a fair amount of time discussing the hijab specifically and why they chose to wear it. Covering the hair, to them, is a huge part of their expression of modesty and the practice of Islam. In Judaism, hair covering is only for married women, but the intent behind it is similar. That a woman's hair makes her more beautiful and desirable, that there's some mystical quality to her hair, and that only her husband should have access to that. There are some Christian practices that also insist on hair covering for women, but these tend not to be in the mainstream, and some are considered old-fashioned. I chose videos by women only intentionally. It was much easier to find videos of male religious leaders, especially in Judaism and Islam, pontificating on the importance of modesty, but my purpose here was to get a woman's perspective. What became clear as I combed through these and other videos was the deeply entrenched patriarchal quality to their statements. Even though all 6 women spoke in positive, enthusiastic terms about why dressing modestly is important to them, the repeating ideas of protection from the male gaze, that certain things were reserved for her husband, and that if you show off more of your body, people won't see you for who you are, were revealing. First, there's the notion that men can't control their gaze or actions, and that it's a woman's job to protect them from themselves by not becoming a temptation. And second, is the clear implication that a woman's body belongs to her husband once she's married. It may be unsurprising that the practice of modesty in these religions reflect patriarchal attitudes, given that those attitudes are suffused throughout the teachings of all 3 religions, and not just in terms of clothing. A woman's purity, defined as virginity, is highly valued, and men tend to be the religious leaders. In most cases, religious communities are close-knit, and there's a great deal of social pressure to conform. A woman who chooses a less modest mode of dress is likely to be judged, and certainly will be noticed and talked about. Even though all 6 of these women stressed that they're not judging anyone and that dressing modestly is a choice, how much of a choice do you really have when being part of your community means conforming to their ideas of propriety? Social pressure can be a powerful force, and when coupled with religious convictions and teachings about your behavior, dressing modestly becomes part of the uniform. I imagine it's very difficult to make a choice that opposes that status quo. None of this should be construed as judgment or criticism of these women. I found the videos interesting and enlightening. Liel, the young Jewish woman, seems very sweet and earnest. Aziza, the British Muslim woman, is hilarious and amazing at accents. Seriously, check out her video just for that. All of these women come across as genuine. I'm not here to tell them they're wrong or ignorant or coerced or anything else. However, I think it is important to understand and acknowledge the origin of these rules of modesty for women. They are used as tools of oppression in some communities and countries, and we need to be clear that while all 6 of these women live in places where they absolutely do have that freedom of choice, there are women all over the world who can be shamed, shunned, arrested, or even killed for choosing not to follow these rules, relying upon male religious leaders interpreting a millennia-old text written by other male leaders of a highly patriarchal society to dictate how a woman should dress can and does lead to societies in which women's rights are limited or curtailed in the name of their faith. I should also mention that it's not just religions that place the responsibility of modesty on women. This comes up constantly in public school dress codes, among other places. While I do firmly believe in dressing appropriately for the venue or occasion, I also firmly believe that it is never a woman or girl's responsibility to cover up to protect boys and men from themselves. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this kind of content and would like to see more, please leave me a comment, hit that subscribe button, and let me know if there are other topics you'd like to see me cover. I'll send it back to you, Thunder. Thank you, Hooman, and thank all you Hoomans out there for watching. I definitely has more thoughts to share, but for now, have a bath and a nap, and I'll see you next time.